Hi, everyone. I'm Leah, head of marketing here at LexisNexis ReadTech, and today we're going behind the scenes at the Australia Regulatory Device Summit that took place in Sydney on July 17th and 18th. Gary and Adrian, who are joining me today, they were able to attend this trade show, and we're going to get some insights from them today. So let's start by introducing yourselves. Let's start with you, Adrian. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name's Adrian Lamelli. I live in Denver, Colorado, and with LexisNexis ReadTech, I'm a senior account executive on the medical device side. I've been with us now for going on 4 months, and this was the first summit I got to attend.
Great. Gary, over to you.
Well, I'm on the other side of the country, here in Philadelphia area, senior regulatory solutions consultant. Been with the company now a little bit over 22 years. Started in early on as co-founder of the life sciences department, and have had various roles since then. But now focused on monitoring some of the global regulatory requirements for both medical device and pharmaceuticals, and also cosmetics, those products and the regulations that are affecting bringing those products to market. I try to bring that information to our customers as subject matter expert and share that information with our internal sales and our product development teams.
Great. Thank you, guys. Let's start with you, Adrian. So, what were your initial first impressions of this Australia Regulatory Device Summit?
So I didn't have a whole lot of knowledge of what to expect on the front of it. Again, my first summit for it, but what it seemed like was that the attendance was great and there was a lot of excitement. Coming from Denver is quite a long ways, but we were in a beautiful spot right in the middle of Darling Harbor of Sydney, Australia, and you could really feel the excitement coming up for Australia. What it seems to feel like for Australia is that there's a lot of cohesion around the world of different parts working together. So I think that was for me a great intro into it.
Yeah, I
That's
found it pretty similar to many of the RAPS conferences that have taken place in the past. This particular one was a little bit smaller, and as a result, they were able to have a single regulatory hall for all the sessions, and obviously the lobby with registration table and exhibitors and the meal presented and that sort of thing. So it was well organized. I think noteworthy is that this was the first time that RAPS was putting in sponsoring a particular event in Australia. So they partnered up with MTAA, which is that it's the let me get it right here, the Medical Technology Association of Australia. So they had events a couple years ago, Leah, and they had now joined up with RAPS this year, so that was the significant, and it was very, at least we were very glad to, Adrian and I were very glad to be able to participate in this particular first event taking place in Australia.
Yeah, that's great. I know it's so exciting to be able to go down under. Um, okay, how would you describe the turnout and energy? I know, Adrian, you said that everybody was really excited. Can you give us any insight in kind of the number of attendees or any countries that were represented?
Yeah, absolutely. So Gary and I looking back at the stats again, the energy there was great, and we had about 340 attendees over the 2 days, which is way
Wow.
more than the initial thought. And talking with reps as well, I think last minute wise as well, within the last week they had another 150 who had signed up. From the 340 attendees, you had 12 countries involved and five different continents. And one of the things that really stuck out to Gary as well was a quote from Amy Fisher, who's the RAP's Vice President of Engagement and Marketing and Member Development. She said that it was exciting to see the community come together with such enthusiasm and engagement, from in-depth presentations and insightful audience questions to high quality networking, hallway conversations, and there was certainly a buzz that seemed to spark new ideas for innovation and collaborative opportunities. So, and I think that one, it definitely gives a full picture of what it was. It was while you were in the meetings, there was excitement. When you had the presentations, it was very in depth from all different parts of the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was impressed with the content that was covered. Very knowledgeable, presenters, and the questions from the audience were also very good. So, um, it was very high quality. A lot of
great.
good questions and interest. Um, as perhaps expected, for the first year, the volume wasn't quite as much as what you might see at a long, well-established RAPS convergence in Europe or in the U.S. And there, I think they pull in roughly 1,000 or 2,000 respectively for the EU and U.S. But this was very impressive for the first year, and I'm excited to hear that they do have plans for next year as well.
Oh, yeah, that's great. Let's get down into some of the sessions and the speakers that were there. So, Adrian, which session or speaker stood out to you most and why?
Yeah, for me, it was on the first day. It was Gary Pesco, who they were kind of dubbing as the godfather of UDI in Australia. He was again, UDI is it's still something that's newer for me. The world I come from is more inside the operating room,
Mhm.
dealing with the medical devices, but UDI was a big part of that because that's how we would also help them track. So to see where Australia was of what they were doing and then their goal to map out to get to where they want to be, it was very impressive. He gave a very in-depth presentation and just started doling out timelines of where they're looking to be and how they want to accomplish it. But what it also showed was it's the safety, right? They always were doing the same thing that like you try to think about in the operating room of it's safety for a patient. There are patients who are on the other side of that table, and that's why some of these changes are going to be needed. So it was for me that was one of the more insightful things because I got to see like kind of take a peek behind the curtain of what they're doing to get UDI to where it wants to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I would
great.
jump on board with that presentation as well, Adrian. I thought that was the most beneficial. Now, that's not to minimize all the other presentations and the expert
Correct.
presenters. For example, we heard from not only TGA, the local Australian regulatory team, but New Zealand was represented, US FDA, and European Commission. In some cases, they were remote connections. Um, there was communication and discussion about Anavisa from Brazil. HSA was covered from Singapore and the PMDA from Japan. So it was quite an international type of a flavor in all the different presentations. And they covered a lot of content. So over the 2 days, there was about 13 different presentations. Obviously, they covered a lot of Australian regulatory reforms, but they had an international flavor. For example, the International Medical Device Regulators Forum, so IMDRF, was discussed, very much involved in that, as well as MDSAP, so the Medical Device Single Audit Program, which Australia TGA participates in. There was a lot of discussion about that. Um, there was discussions about alliance and what is happening in the U.S. regulations, as well as an update on the EU MDR. And with any conference these days, there had to be the obligatory session on AI. So we
Yeah,
we had the artificial intelligence conversation as well.
of course. And then, Gary, from your perspective, what are the most notable changes happening in Australia's medical device regulations right now?
Well, I think they're continually evolving through the regulations. But most noteworthy, I think, is a significant milestone is this launch of UDI. And Gary Pascoe was very valuable and
Hmm.
comprehensive in talking about that particular program and how it has launched. And as the product manager of the Aussie UDID database, he was very knowledgeable and was able to share that. So I think that was probably the most notable change coming about in the regulations because it's brand new. It's not a tweak here and there. This is a brand new initiative that everyone is going to have to learn and adhere to.
Great. And then for both of you, do you see more alignment happening between Australian and global regulatory frameworks or more divergence?
I mean, it feels very collaborative, like Gary was
Right.
saying. I mean, you had from all over, Anavisa, HSA, FDA, right? EU, Udamed. There was it feels like what they're trying to do is share that information with each other so that it can become more of it's a global standard is what they're trying to do. You heard a lot of the presentations talk about how they do a rotating committee, right? And it's where the committee is going to be held on certain years. And that is something that I think is great too, because what it starts to show is that everybody's trying to make it global to make it easier and have some type of standardization. So if anything, it's only going to be more cohesive.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I think there's a lot of interactions, as you were mentioning there. Now, from the regulatory point of view, I think historically we will see that TGA was very closely aligned with the European Union regulations and the CE mark. Um, but we have seen, at least and it was exhibited at this summit as well, a TGA move to include the US FDA in their regulations and approvals and alignment. Um, so that was interesting. As an example, they would accept products that were had labeling that was approved by not only the EU, but they would also accept products that were labeled with the U.S. UDI standards. And now there's also some recognition of 510Ks in the U.S. So it looks like they're expanding the scope and their alignment, not only with the European Union, but now
Mhm.
also with the U.S. And if you look at the UDI initiative, um, initially, if you go back to the letter of intent, it kind of was very much aligned with the European Union, but as it was developed and now as rolled out, it's very closely aligned with the US FDA. So the data set that they collect has many similar attributes to what the US FDA collects for UDI. One of the machine-to-machine formats using HL7 SPL uses the same schema as what the FDA makes use of. Now, obviously, they collect some different values on top of that, and the protocol is a little bit different. But there is much more alignment as it fleshed out and it was developed with the U.S. rather than with the European Union.
That's great. Very informative. So Adrian, what was your biggest takeaway from the summit?
I think that people are they feel it coming, right? Which is it's in a good way. They know that things are going to start to take place, and this was an opportunity for them to see what those changes were going to be. And it feels like they're getting prepared, right? They're trying to see where they're at and get their ducks in a row. So talking with
Right.
everybody individually on what their situation was, because for me, Australia is a little different because they most things are imported. So I was talking with sponsors as well as
Mhm.
how they're going to work with their manufacturers. And everyone's a little different. And I think that was for me very important to see what their interaction was so everybody knows who needs to be involved in some of the decision making.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would add to that that my takeaway was that the UDI program is up and running. Right now, the voluntary submissions are able to be
Hmm.
submitted. And roughly a year from now, in 2026, July, you'll have a deadline for the medical device class 3s and the 2Bs. And then the following year, 2027, the medical device class 2As. And then the following year, 2028, July, medical device class 1 steriles and in vitro diagnostic class 4 and 3. And then the following year, 2029, July, in vitro diagnostic class 2s and some class 1s. There's a lot of exceptions where you can voluntarily submit like a class 1 other than a sterile. Or there's a couple in vitro diagnostics that are required, but for the most part, they are not required, but you can voluntarily submit them. So the takeaway is that this program is up and running. I was always very impressed over the years, and our product team as well was impressed with the TGA implementation. They're very receptive, very open. They had a lot of good work sessions with the various stakeholders, not only manufacturers but also vendors. And this was exhibited in this summit as well. That they had done a lot of homework and were able to now roll this out. And now time to start submissions, and we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and this has been very insightful. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Gary and Adrian, for discussing the Australia Regulatory Device Summit. And if you would like to get in touch with us and discuss Australia or other markets more, please go to our website at www.readtech.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee.
Thanks.